Hello, I'm Emma Louise Coffey, and you're welcome to the Dairy Edge, the Teagasc Dairy podcast. We're bringing you the latest information, insights and opinion to improve dairy farm performance. On this week's show, Dairy Farmer Gillian O'Sullivan explains how she achieves similar production to twice-a-day herds while milking just once a day and allowing for a family-friendly work-life balance.
Well, we have a fragmented farm, and I guess so. We were always milking dairy cows on our home farm here, and on the outside block would have been a beef or a suckler farm. And in 2005, then we swapped that over because the outside block had a greater land base. So now, since then, since 2005, we're milking on the out farm, which is 41 hectares, and we're milking about we say 100, little over 110 cows there. And the home farm, which was initially where we were always milking, is now where we are replacement heifers.
We're here now in mid-June, just to get an idea of what sort of production are you achieving and based on what kind of a diet?
Yeah, so the one downside of farming on the on our milking platform is that it's probably one of the driest farms in the country. So it's very, very steep, it's south facing. And over the last, let's say, 10 days, we're after really starting to struggle with the drought. And that's just the downside of that type of farm. It's great in the springtime, it's great at the shoulders. You can get out and go grazing, but yeah, we're after being affected by the drought the last 10 days, and it means that our production wise, we're producing a little over 1.5 kilos milk solids, and we've silage in the diet. And we're also feeding 4 kilos concentrate, which for us this time of the year isn't ideal, but. There you go. This is the 2018 is the year that just keeps on giving, isn't it?
Yes, and in terms of that, have you any stats on farm cover? Have you an idea of farm cover overall or farm cover per cow?
Farm cover per cow is around 130 at the moment. So again, not ideal.
Yeah. So you're trying to hold until you get that bit of rain and you can build again.
That's it. So we got a small dribble of rain last night, but maybe just enough to wet the ground. We're hoping now Saturday will bring out a little bit more. But it's really holding us back at the moment.
And then when we consider, you're well into the breeding season at this stage, can you give us an idea of how that has gone for you? Submission rates or, repeat rates?
We've been relatively happy with the breeding season so far. As regards submission rates, everything came cycling. Everything got an AI straw that was, for the milking cows, and repeat rates at the moment. So we're just after hitting 7 weeks, and we're seeing, I'd be hoping that we'd be getting between, 65 ish conception rate per service. We'll see. I mean, that's a little bit lower than what repeat rates are coming back. Quite. We've only, I think, repeat rates of about 30% at the moment. But you always get those little surprises in the last few weeks. So I'll hold off on making a call on this just yet. But relatively happy so far. And as regards our replacement heifers, they are going to be scanned pretty soon, but we're looking at maybe over 70% conception rate per service in our replacement heifers. So happy enough now with that.
And just in terms of, are ye all AI or are ye AI and bull?
So our plan, our breeding strategy would be dairy AI for the first four weeks, and then we have beef AI up to week 6, and then we let off bulls then for the last 4 weeks. So it's a 10-week breeding season.
Has this spring and, the beast from the east, have you seen that affecting the cows, maybe production-wise or fertility, or have you recovered from it?
Well, I would say production-wise, we weren't really hit that badly. Now, that was probably as a consequence of just, very generous supplementation as regards concentrate. But our silage supplies were relatively good, and we were able to, keep feeding. We didn't have to buy in a whole pile of silage. It was only very, down to, in April, we bought 30 bales, but we got through the vast majority of the spring with our own silage, which really benefited, production-wise. As regards fertility, we felt that, the once-a-day system is going to be easier on cow condition anyway. So we felt that the cows were in relatively good nick coming into the breeding season, and I think that's shown through as well. With having all submission rates have been 100% over in the first couple of weeks of the breeding season. So I'd be happy out with that, considering what an awful spring it was.
And I think we've got a nice feel for the O'Sullivan farm and your current performance. But what we're really interested to hear about is the fact that you're practicing once a day, and you've alluded to that. We have spoken 2 or 3 weeks ago to Brian Hilliard about once a day, but it would be really interesting to hear it now from the farmer perspective. So you're operating that for almost 10 years. Can you talk us through, why you continue this practice and how it works for you?
Well, yeah, this is our 10th season once a day, and from what started out as going once a day to buy time and to just manage and cope after my brother passed away. After that, it became something that everyone really, really enjoyed. It encouraged myself and Neil to come down and take up farming when neither of us really had with a huge knowledge base when it came to dairy farming. But it gave us the time and the space to learn on the job. It gave us a fantastic work-life balance. And then we could see after a couple of years that it definitely was really resilient and profitable. With those bad years of 15 and 16, the business was still profitable. And then we couldn't really find a reason to go back twice a day. So yeah, we've just been really pleased with it. We've 3 young kids as well, and their evenings are filled up with football, hurling, rugby, that type of thing. And to be able to take part in those aspects of their lives, it's invaluable to us.
And you talked through, roughly 10 years ago, you were new to dairying. Can you talk us through your transition from, it's nearly a new life and a new career? Talk us through how you transitioned into dairying.
Well, we transitioned into dairying. Well, both myself and Neil we were working full-time small animal vets, and we're living in an apartment in Dublin City. And then in 2009, I came down to just get through the spring, and Neil, both myself and Neil, then were coming down to do weekends, and to give a dig out on the farm. And then the following year, then we gave up our jobs, handed our notice, and we moved home, and that's how it started. So we were very, very fortunate to have, my parents were wonderful support. My dad is so progressive. All his life he's been so progressive, and he's been great to teach us. He'd no trouble just teaching us everything from scratch. He'd tell us, and we often needed to be told numerous times, but he was fantastic. And again, to add to that, Brian Hilliard has been a real rock for us here as a farm advisor, and we're blessed to have him.
Yeah, no, it's a really fabulous story, Gillian. And I suppose, what I'm getting from you, it's all quite positive for your system. You talk about the work-life balance and, the time that it allows you with, say, your family. What other positives do you see within the system of once a day?
Well, apart from the flexibility is a huge thing, and I've mentioned that before. Just that it has a great social impact as regards having flexibility with the dairy farm, because dairy farms are quite time constrained in that you have to be in the parlour at certain times in the day. But as regards people, it's wonderful. As regards cow welfare, that's where we didn't really expect to have a really big impact on cow welfare, because we knew very little about the system starting out. But that knocked on that, you have fantastic fertility. We're close to 90% of the cows calved in the first 6 weeks on a consistent basis. Because it just takes a level of production stress off cows in early lactation, and that results in them being in better body condition. And coming into the breeding season, cows in better body condition are more likely to go and calve to their first service. So that we saw those benefits across the board. Other benefits as regards cow welfare was in terms of lameness. Just a recent study there showed that lameness in Ireland the prevalence of lameness in pasture-based herds is around 17%. Ideally, it should be less than 10%. And for herds that are milked once a day, you get superior hoof health, and as a result, and reduced lameness. So we definitely saw that as well. And for a farm that is so steep, and we do so much walking up and down hills, the lameness isn't really a huge issue on the farm here. So we're very, very, very happy with that. We have, I guess the big other positives would be it's a low cost system. So you have to get your head around that a low cost system means that you have to focus on the resources you have yourself. So focusing on growing and utilizing as much grass as possible, improving soil fertility, and making the most of the likes of slurry and farmyard manure. And just, it makes the system very resilient, and especially when milk price starts to drop.
You mentioned all the benefits, and there's so many of them. One of the biggest worries and barriers, even for people to milk once a day for the first 3 or 4 weeks of lactation, will be that hit in terms of annual production. And it is the main barrier. And what sort of production are you achieving now? And was it low when you initially went into once a day, and did it build and stabilise over time?
Yeah, so that is one of the big negatives of once a day, that there's a production drop. And when we went once a day our first year, we took a 20% drop in production, and that was year one. In year two, we jumped up further. We went 15% again there, and by year three, we were back to twice a day solids. So initially on our last year, twice a day, we were doing 364 kilos milk solids. By our third year, once a day, we were back at that. And this, we say in 2017, our crop performance delivered to the crop would have been 384 kilos per cow. And that's with kind of over 9% solids, and you're looking at over 45 centilitre. So all fairly positive figures there. Now, what got us there, like the key to succeeding at once a day, I think, is managing the transition well and having the cow that suits the system. A cow that suits the system is, what we have found is one that crossbred cows do quite well. Jersey and crossbred cows do take, they transition better than a black and white cow. Now, it doesn't mean to say that black and white cows can't fit into the system, but one thing that we've always been focusing on, and we've realised in the last couple of years, has been that as regards, if you're looking at EBI figures for cows, the kilos of fat and protein on your EBI figures are quite important, and the higher that they are, kilos of fat and protein, the better the cow seems to perform on once a day. So our kilos for fat and protein on our EBI figure would be over 20 when you combine both of them, and that's probably a good bit higher than your average black and white herd. And maybe that's what we're breeding for it, because fertility seems to come fairly naturally in the herd. You get good fertility performance, and it's not to say that you leave fertility behind, but that there's a natural kind of increase in fertility in the herd. But so we're a little bit more production focused. We don't know how far we can go along that line, though. It's a big learning curve, because there's not that many herds that are at once a day, and we kind of seem to be learning from each other at it.
Yes, and I suppose just to pick up 384 kilos of solids delivered, like that's almost hitting, that's your national average for your twice a day. So it's really competitive. And another point on that, the fact that you mentioned your fertility is consistently so good with your hitting the 90% 6-week calving rate. That has a huge knock-on effect on the days in milk. And higher days in milk is going to drive higher production, which is important to know too.
And I mean, the other thing about that is when if you're hitting the national average, as we are with with once a day productions, a national average, the same national day average as a twice a day herd, then we say that a national twice a day herd is probably doing around 5,000 litres, and with A+B -C, you have a -C charge with our processor of 4 centilitre. 4 centilitre processing charge on 5,000 litres becomes €200. If you have, so our once a day herd is producing around 4,000 litres, the processing charge on 4,000 litres at 4 centilitre is €160. So the saving there, that's saving onto my milkshake, is an extra €40 for 300 less milkings, and producing similar sizes as a average twice a day herd. So the savings all round, really.
And you mentioned you're using crossbred cows. Were you always using crossbred cows, or is that been introduced into the system over the last 10 years?
Well, the herd was always crossbred, but with varying different types of breeds. So there would have been a bit of Mount Belliard, a bit of Swedish Reds, a bit of Normands. There was definitely Jersey breeding in there, but a bit of everything. The herd was most definitely crossbred when I came down and started here. But we did go further into the Kiwi Cross and the Jerseys as well. So the herd is very crossbred.
When you consider the key performance indicators at the end of the year to compare your herd and benchmark your herd against others, would you use similar metrics to the conventional twice-a-day farms, or is there something different you'd consider for a once-a-day herd?
Since we started out, we've always been benchmarking ourselves against other twice-a-day herds, because we're in quite a progressive twice-a-day discussion group local to us, the Data 1250 group, and they're fantastic. So it's great to be able to benchmark ourselves against very good twice-a-day herds. But since we set up our own once-a-day discussion group in 2015, we benchmark ourselves against other once-a-day herds as well. And I mean, the key performance indicators are always going to be similar enough. So, you're looking at your six-week calving rate, you're looking at your performance per cow, somatic cell count, just all the regular ones, and then the profit monitor stuff then at the year end.
Can you give us an idea of what your day looks like, in terms of, obviously you're only milking once a day. Does your start time vary to a twice a day herd?
Because again, we have 3 young children, we kind of to work the milking around school drop-off time and that type of thing. So it is an early start. We like to get the milking out of the way and kind of freeze up the rest of the day then. So starting milking close to 6 o'clock and in the morning, and finishing around 9ish. And that's, everything, yard wash down, everything. So typical day, I mean, today we would, milking in the morning. Neil was milking this morning, whereas I've been milking the last 4 mornings because we split it between us. And so back out on the farm then for a couple of hours, we were doing a little bit of, I think, dosing there for a while. And then this afternoon, he was doing a grass cover, but he was finished there before 4 o'clock, and he's out with the kids now while I'm chatting to you. So it's, other days would be filled with fertilizer spreading or doing something, but there's great job satisfaction to finishing the milking in the morning, starting a job, and being able to finish it by the end of the day without having interruptions. There's benefits all around for me.
And just to follow on from that, I'm getting that it's all very positive, but is there any temptation to revert back to, say, the twice a day milking system?
Genuinely, I can't find a reason to go back to twice a day. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that you probably get more production out of the cows if you went back twice a day, but would those cows be suited to a twice a day system? And would I see a massive drop off in fertility, and and then would I see a huge drop off in my quality of life? I don't know. So look, we've gotten this far with the breeding cow for once a day system, and I don't know, would we get back to look, we'd never go back twice a day, to be honest.
Yeah. And I suppose my final question to Gillian, when we consider looking to keep up to date technically, we have, discussion groups, open days. What was your main source of information, throughout your dairy career, and what do you do now to keep yourself up to date?
So to keep up to date, initially we got loads of information from our local advisor, Brian Hilliard, because he was always interested in once a day. So he provided us with loads of once a day information initially. And then once we got our head around the system and we were able to, we were sourcing information then from New Zealand, from Massey University, and from Colin Holmes, because he was doing great research over there on once a day. Then once we started up our own once a day discussion group, the PODI discussion group, we have a group of 22 farmers. It's across 12 counties in the country. We really started to learn from each other. And so that's been really, all those areas have been very positive. And also myself, I started a dairy herd health cert through UCD in the past 2 years. And again, that's been, that's a broad, I guess, education in dairy herd health problems. And I think that's really helped as well on the farm here, just to tighten up certain areas, especially around maybe calf management in springtime and cow nutrition, and just, different areas. It's really added to why we're doing things on the farm. So look, I think that every day you're learning something on the farm is a good day, and going to farm walks is invaluable as well. And you always learn something at visiting other farms and hearing other people's experiences or trying different things. So broadly speaking, we kind of dipped our toe in everything to learn.
Thanks so much for sharing your story with us,
Thanks,
Gillian.
Louise.
That's it for this week's episode of the Dairy Edge podcast, and my thanks to Gillian O'Sullivan for joining me on the show. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, and for more information, go to the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie. I'm Emma Louise Coffey, and join me next time for your Dairy Edge.